Hey everyone, and welcome to Geriatric Mom, the show that helps you have a voice, real moms and dads sharing the unedited truth, finding joy in the chaos, and reminding each other we're all in this together. So, this episode is going to be episode 16 of Geriatric Mom. This one, like we discussed the last episode, this one's going to be more about codependency. I definitely have characteristics of that. I have no problem admitting that. Definitely something I've learned over time, but they kind of go hand in hand, I feel like, with domestic violence for a lot of people. So, I think it's important to kind of go over like what that looks like and just kind of talk about those things so that you can seek the help that you might need to help you get out of those bad situations or help break those, behaviors on your end, to be able to, live a happy life where, those things aren't acceptable and be, like I said, in a healthy lifestyle. So let's talk about what the definition of codependency is, which is excessive emotional or psychological reliance on a partner, typically one who requires support. So this could be like different things. So they need you because they're an addict or they have an illness or they just really struggle in life and aren't able to like support themselves. So they're codependent on you and you're codependent on them. Like one's emotional and one's like more like physical needs, right? So it's kind of like a double whammy. So like both of you are dependent on each other for something or the other. And to me, this I'm gonna say this too. I feel like there can be healthy kind of codependency characteristics and then there's like unhealthy ones, right? Like me and my husband need each other, but we need each other in healthy ways. Like he cooks, I clean. We both pay bills. We both take care of Odin. I do the baths, he sets up for the baths. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like this give and take, give and take, give and take, but we are reliant on each other and we do help each other. And so, some of those things, like the way you function, can be considered codependency behaviors. But to me, like, we utilize each other more as like it's more teamwork. So, I can say that some of these aren't necessarily all bad things, but in general, like that definition of codependency is not good. So with codependency, there are 5 core symptoms of it. Low self-esteem, you have people-pleasing behavior, so you always want to make others happy. You have trouble setting boundaries with others. You really like caretaking. Obviously, I'm in healthcare, so I'm a nurse, love taking care of other people. And then dependency. So always relying on other people to kind of substantiate the way you feel. So I don't feel good unless you feel good, right? So I'm not happy unless you're happy. I'm only happy if you're happy, like blah, blah, blah. I'm sad if you're sad. I'm mad if you're mad. Like those type of things. Those are really like dependent behaviors, just really relying on other people for how you feel. Like I said, this can be vice versa. So it can be like emotional, psychological, and on the other side, for the other person, it's like physical things that they need. Maybe they need you for emotional well-being as well, but a lot of vice versa in those situations. Either you can be needy or you both can be needy or they can just be needy. But a lot of the characteristics are like needy, clingy, try to control the situation, but you're also submissive. That definitely is like the definition of me. I would try to control the situation as best as I could, try to make it as good as possible and try to set boundaries, but I wasn't good at keeping those in place. And I'm also like, I'm not submissive, but I am, right? So if somebody wants to get into like a huge shenanigan, like fight about things. I don't want to do that. So I'm going to submit, and I'm just going to kind of back off. Because if not, then I'm going to take it to a whole nother level, and I don't like fighting. Like, I don't want to fight with people. So, um, so being submissive is another characteristic. So being needy, being clingy. So why don't you love me? Da da da. Those were things that I definitely felt when I was younger. I kind of outgrew those as the time went, but like I said, I was in the relationship for so long that it was already too late for all that. But in the beginning, I was like, why don't they love me? Why don't they this? Why don't they want me around? Why am I not good enough? So those behaviors are very, they do show those codependency behaviors. Um, these characteristics generally are like more one-sided, where like one person is more of like this and the other one's like more of the one that's like demanding all the needs and the help and the wants and all of that. So generally it's not like both people are like this. Generally it's like more one versus the other. Characteristics generally are one draining the relationship while the other attempts to keep everything together. So like I was saying, it's like a constant battle of, you know, trying to keep the situation afloat and keep everything going while, it's pretty much drowning. Like one of you is fighting so hard to keep everything going, and the other one I feel like is trying to destroy it. So it's this constant back and forth, and you're never going to get anywhere because you're fighting against each other and you're not fighting together. And it's because both people don't have the same wants and needs, right? So pretty much you're both using each other for one way or the other. One needs more emotional support, one needs more physical support, and it just kind of goes back and forth. Um, One sacrifices everything, like I was saying, to take care of the other, often ignoring their own health and needs. So that happens a lot in codependent relationships where, one person is working, the insane amount of hours trying to keep everything going. They're trying to keep the house clean. They're trying to better their lives. They're trying to move forward. And the other person is really like stagnant and not really doing anything or contributing to that situation, but they have expectations that you will continue to provide those for them and that stability. So that becomes hard for the other person because they can't figure out what they need. They might be tired, they might really could use some extra emotional support, or help paying the bills or help doing those household chores, and you're not going to get that because that other person cannot provide those. um the one of the bad things with these codependent relationships is that even though you're trying to do good, you're actually causing harm. So the person, trying to fight and keep going might think that they're doing what is right because they're trying to, keep that other person going, and they're afraid what will happen to them if they don't do that, and they feel like they're the only person that can do that, um, to try to help them, and really in them that's not true. They're actually causing more harm because you're enabling those poor and bad behaviors. And that is something that took me an insanely way too long to figure out, that I was actually like contributing those behaviors, because I'm like, I'm not the one doing that. I'm not the one telling them that it's okay to go do drugs or go do these things, or I'm trying not to give them money. I'm trying not to do all these things. I'm only trying to keep them from being homeless or dying or da 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 da. But really, you're just making the situation harder and then labeling that behavior for even longer. And that was probably one of the hardest things I had to learn. You cannot change what someone else does. You cannot make them be something they don't want to be. You can't change what they're doing. Only they can change that. And I want you to hear that. You cannot change that person, only they can change it themselves. No matter what you do, they are still going to do what they want to do until they change their mind about that. And I promise you, I know how hard that is, to take in and understand, and especially watching someone that you care about fail and hurt But the longer you let it go on, the longer the situation is just gonna worsen over time. Um, they think, um, so another thing about codependency too is they feel like they're actually being loved by the other person, or that they're showing love to that other person, but truly it's like more like pity. Like when I take a look back at the situation I was in before, it wasn't love. Like it really, I just felt bad, like that it was all going to be my fault, and I took that all on myself. No one said that was like my fault, but I took that in myself, that it was going to be my fault if they failed or they weren't okay. And so it was more of a pity situation. It wasn't like actual love. Like when you feel actual love, you'll know. And that is definitely not it. There's a lot of like rescue behavior and codependency where, if that person calls you and they need you at that moment, you'll drop everything to go get them. You will go do whatever they need you to do to get them out of that situation that they got themselves into. And that is also a really poor behavior of codependency that enables those poor behaviors for even longer, because they know that no matter what they do to you or what they do in general, that you're still going to be there for them. So no matter what happens, they know that you're going to come get them, that you're going to fix the situation, that you're going to take care of it. And once they figure that out and you continue to do those things for them, it's hard to get back out of that situation, and it's hard to remove yourself from that situation. So I would say, it's okay to help people and to be there for you, but when it becomes a pattern and not just like, oops, I made a mistake, but when it's something repetitive that continues to happen, that's not a mistake anymore. That's a behavior, and that's something that once again they have to fix, that you can't fix for them. So rescuing them from what they're doing over and over and over again is only going to continue those behaviors, and it's not going to actually help them move on in life or better themselves. It's just going to keep you trapped in that cycle and that rotation. And the emotions that you feel, a lot of times the codependent person, the reason why they continue to do that is because of like the discomforting feelings that you get, which are going to be guilt, going to be sadness, which could be like, the pity feeling, right? So you're going to feel all of these things, and that guilt and stuff can take over, and you can't let it. That is something that I'm really bad about. If I feel guilty about something, or if I truly feel like something's my fault, I'll continue to take on that situation and try to fix it because I feel like it's my fault, and I don't like those uncomfortable feelings. I don't like making people upset. I don't like hurting people's feelings. I don't like watching people be hurt. I really struggle with those things. Like if someone cries, yeah, I'm like, I don't know what to do. So those really uncomfortable feelings are part of the reason why they continue those bad behaviors too, is because you continue to not want to feel your own feelings. So you just keep on in the poor cycle of codependency to avoid feeling those bad feelings. Um, Most of the time, the codependent person is generally reliable. Like I said, they feel responsible for that other person or their behaviors. They will also try to do anything that they can not to feel abandoned. So that is one thing that I talked about with like the domestic violence stuff. It's why don't you love me? Why don't you care? Like I don't want to be alone. And that's just like a feeling I've had throughout my whole life. And I've never really narrowed down why that is. I had a decent family, they loved me. I have siblings, like I've always had like those things, but I always felt like no matter what, like I wasn't going to have somebody that loved me or cared about me. And I didn't want to be abandoned, and I never wanted to be alone. And I was always afraid of being alone forever. And those were just like some feelings I definitely had when I was younger, for sure, that I just never wanted to be alone, and I didn't understand why I couldn't just find that love, right? I was never a person that wanted to date multiple people, wanted to be in multiple relationships. I wanted to get married, and I honestly wanted to have kids when I was younger and do all of those things. And that was my goal, was to have a family and to have all those things. So not feeling abandoned was a huge issue for me too. The codependency also has a lot of need for like recognition, like, oh, you're doing such a good job trying to take care of them. Oh, you're doing the best you can. Like, you need that constant reassurance that you're doing the right thing. And in the end, you're really not doing the right thing, but you feel like you need that to keep going. So you're always looking for that. You're doing the best you can, and you're doing what you feel is right. So that can be hard. Um, Another thing with codependent people is the lack of trust in others and yourself. So, you find like those few people that you really do have trust in, and when you only trust very few people, it's hard to find others that you feel like you can trust. Once you're vulnerable with one person, you don't want to do that again. So that is a huge part of codependency behaviors. Once again, it's like the sense of guilt. If you try to disconnect or assert yourself to that person, you're afraid of how they're going to react and what they're going to do. So you just kind of submit. Again, you're submissive, and you just continue to deal with the situation and keep going, because you don't want to deal with those uncomfortable feelings again. You don't want to be assertive. You don't want to be mean. You don't want to feel guilty. You don't want to do all of those things. Intimacy is huge for those people. Usually they don't want to be intimate with other people. They only, have those few people that they really have those relationships with, and so they don't want to have to do that again with anybody else. Um, Difficult time making decisions. So making hard decisions like, I need to cut this relationship off, or I need to do this. Like, they really struggle with making those big decisions, which I feel like in life, I didn't have a hard time making those decisions, but I definitely have a hard time making those decisions with other people. So really, like, being like, I'm done with you. Like, you are not beneficial in my life. You are not a positive influence in my life. And like cutting out those situations, I feel like those situations are harder for me. Poor communication is one of them. Difficulty defining your own self-worth. And you kind of base your worth on the behavior of that other person. So if they're not doing well, you feel like you're not doing well. So your self-worth is based on how they are doing, and that's not positive. Emotions vary in intensity and duration. So sometimes you might feel very like, I'm doing so good and I'm helping them and I can do this, and then all of a sudden you're like, no, I can't do this. I can't. And then it's just like up, down, up, down. And so your behaviors are all over the place too. Obviously, you can't like diagnose yourself with this. It's something that you need to talk to a trained professional about, because some of these things can have to do with other issues too, right? So like, it doesn't have to just be codependency that you might have some of these feelings, and they might match you in some ways but not in other ways. So it's important that you talk to a professional, psychologist or a therapist, and they can kind of help you go through with these things to see if you may be more of a codependent person, or if there's something else going on, and how they can best help you. Some questions though that you can use. All of this information came from the Mental Health of America. I really enjoyed their take on everything, and kind of how like non-biased their information was, that it's just kind of more like, this is what we see in a lot of the people that are codependent, and some questions that you can ask yourself that might help you decide if you need to go talk to somebody, or if you do kind of show some of those codependency behaviors. If you answer yes to a lot of these questions, you may have some of those codependent behaviors. So one of them is, do you keep quiet to avoid fights and arguments? If your answer is yes, that shows like your lack of assertiveness in the situation, and that you don't want to kind of be aggressive, and you just want to, get through that situation. So you just kind of avoid the fights and you keep quiet just so that it will be over with. Always worried about others' opinion of you. That's always been a huge issue of mine. I definitely had like a few bad years when I was younger, right? And then I felt like I spent my entire life trying to make up for those things, when really I was just being a teenager and I was being stupid, and it really didn't define my self-worth or who I was. But I definitely was like always worried that I was just constantly being judged because of those things that I had done, and I wanted to make up for that and show that that's like not the person I was. And I feel like I was constantly trying to just be better than that. So I was always constantly worried about what, friends thought and family thought and coworkers and just everyone around me. Have you ever lived with someone that has drug or alcohol abuse? So that would be a yes for me. That is partly due to the fact that you kind of allow those situations to go on, and you put up with them in that situation, when really, you should obviously not be in those situations, and really set those boundaries that you're not going to allow yourself to be in those. So that's one of them. Lived with someone who hits or belittles you. So I think after we went through that, I definitely agree that's something that a lot of people with codependent behaviors do, is they make excuses for what's happening and what's being done to them, and try to like justify the fact of why it's happening, or make excuses for that other person. Are the opinions of others more important than your own? So you put other people's worth before yours. You care about what they say before what your opinion is, what your true like morals and boundaries are. You kind of set in the back burner and just go more so with what the other person is saying. Once again, they all relate back to each other. You want to avoid those fights, those arguments. You don't want to feel that guilt. You don't want to do all of those things. You have difficulty adjusting to new things, like a new job, new situations, which I definitely do. I, don't like switching jobs. I like staying where I am. I like being comfortable in the situation I'm in. I like to know what I'm doing. It was definitely hard for me to change jobs, which it ended up being like a super beneficial situation, and I'm so glad that I did. But it was very hard for me because I was very good at the job I had and what I had been doing before, and I knew what to expect every single day and what to do in every single situation. So then to take myself out of my comfort zone and put myself in a new one, definitely very difficult. So definitely something with people that are codependent, definitely hard for them to do. Do you feel rejected? Once again, like I was saying, I definitely felt rejected by my family and by a lot of other people for quite some time, and I felt like I continued to just try to make amends and make those situations better because of that rejection feeling. Do you doubt your ability to be who you want? So that's a yes. It took me forever to get my prereqs done and to figure out what I wanted to do for a career, because I really didn't think I could become a nurse, and I didn't think I had the mental ability that I could do those things, and I really didn't honestly think it was possible. So it took me a really long time to get where I needed to be going, because I didn't think I could do it. So that was definitely hard. Uncomfortable expressing how you feel. So that is definitely something I always struggle with. Wording things correctly. I feel like sometimes I have a hard time like expressing how I feel in like an appropriate manner without saying things incorrectly, or I don't want to hurt other people's feelings, so I kind of just stay quiet, right? So instead of like figuring out a good way to communicate, I just don't communicate at all, which is not useful. Feeling inadequate, obviously that's a yes. That happened all the time. I never felt good enough, never felt like it would be good enough, never felt like I could meet someone else or do something different. So definitely very codependent. Leaving will make you a bad person. I felt like that all the time. That was probably like my main reason for not doing what I did. I felt like if that person had died or something bad had happened to him, that it would be my fault. I took that in. I came up with that myself. I put that on myself that if something happened, that it was going to be on me, and that, their family would suffer and they would be hurt and sad, and that it would be my fault and that I would be a bad person if something had happened. Don't like compliments or gifts. That is 100% correct. I don't like people buying things for me. It makes me feel awkward, like I owe them something. I don't like being complimented because I don't believe half of what people say. So I really try to like avoid situations where like the attention is on me. I try to avoid people getting me gifts or being in a situation where I'm going to feel uncomfortable like that. If you want something different, someone to get stuff done. So this one I feel like is more about if you want something different, are you the only one that can get the stuff done, or can you like rely on people to get other stuff done? That is one thing that, especially with my new husband, I've really had to kind of open up about, because I can't do everything by myself, and he is super helpful. He's constantly trying to do things to make things easier for me and make our situation better. And that was really hard for me to let go of some of that, because I am so used to doing everything by myself that it's really hard to let that go and like give up some of that control, because you're so used to having to survive and keep going that you don't think anyone else can do what you're doing, but they can, and they can help, and it makes your life better. Difficulty talking to people in a position of authority. So I feel like when I was younger, I had issues with that. And then as I've gotten older, I feel like it's fine with me. I don't want to be the leader anymore, especially after being a manager and being in charge, and, kind of being in charge in life and for multiple people's situation. I really am like, totally, you can have all that, and I don't want any of that. But sometimes people with codependency will have problems with the, people in authority positions. Having trouble to say no, obviously I've kind of went through that. That is 100% correct. I definitely struggle with saying no and putting those boundaries into place, and really just, expressing that in an appropriate manner. But that is something you might struggle with. Have so many things going on at the same time that you can't focus. So that is 100% true as well. When you're in those situations, it's literally like survival. So you put yourself in so many situations that you literally can't focus. I mean, I would be dealing with, like family, like my immediate family. I'd be dealing with his situation. I would be dealing with his legal situation, his addiction, my work, my school, my mental well-being, our dogs, my sister, like, you know what I mean? There was just so many things going on at once that there was not enough time to put effort into just like one situation.
Sorry. Just in case.
Okay.
He woke up.
He did?
Yeah, he backed out.
Okay.
So I'm just putting that there in case I need to grab it.
Okay, sorry about that. So yeah, you just have so many different things going on, you can't focus. Some things that you can kind of try to do to help with things is group therapy, and just like really being open with how you feel in group discussions. So really just going through things and trying to talk those situations through, and really kind of like recognizing these things in yourself, like I said, obviously you can't diagnose yourself. These are just like a lot of the common behaviors that occur. You have to talk to somebody like a professional so that they can kind of help you decide if that's actually what's going on with you. But definitely thank you for listening to Geriatric Mom. Again, this is episode 16, and I am on YouTube, I am on TikTok, I am on Facebook, Instagram, and I have my own website, www.geriatric.mom.com or dash mom.com. Thanks again for listening, and we will talk soon.